I've got this lovely SylvaC vase. I'm finding that the more often I go to charity shops, vintage markets and antique stores to find vases to arrange flowers in, the more interested I'm becoming to learn more about the makers. Perhaps you're a SylvaC fan, and if you are, it would be lovely if you shared your expertise in the comments. But if you love all things flower arranging, charity shop shopping and a little bit of crafting too, why don't you consider subscribing to my channel? All you need to do is to tap the red button marked subscribe, and that means that next time you open the YouTube app on your phone, your laptop or your computer, one of my videos will be waiting for you. Come and join me as I visit the Petticoat Lane Vintage Market in Ramsgate, and if you've been following for a while, you might recognise it as one winter's day. I spent several hours there in the company of like-minded friends, and if you're interested in finding out more about what I discovered first time round, I'll make sure to leave a link to that video in the description underneath this one. Can you see the maker's mark? SylvaC with a capital S and a capital C in the end, marked Made in England 2456, which is the pattern number. And here's another hyacinth leaf piece. I think this is probably a planter. Now, what do you know about SylvaC? It was founded by William Shaw and William Copestake in 1894, with the S at the beginning of SylvaC standing for Mr. Shaw and the C at the end standing for Mr. Copestake. And in the same colourway up on this top shelf, another hyacinth leaf vase. This time it's a mantel vase, so long and narrow, or at least narrow enough to fit on the top of your mantelpiece without toppling over. And this one here is priced at £30. SylvaC wasn't expensive to produce. It's not rare and was never meant to be high art, but it is becoming increasingly collectible. This vase here also says on the price label that it's SylvaC, but I couldn't find a maker's mark. But the SylvaC name wasn't registered until 1937, so perhaps it predates that time. If you think that is SylvaC or not, let me know in the comments. As well as not having a maker's mark, do you notice how this vase has got a flat bottom? It hasn't got that little punt, if it was a wine bottle, that little indentation at the bottom that the other SylvaC vases have. And look at this shelf. Off to the left we have a trio of more SylvaC, and I believe this is called Gold Leaf, first produced in 1937. I wonder whether it's a little bit newer than that, more recently produced, because it's got a high gloss reminiscent of production in the 1970s rather than the previous more matte glaze. Personally, I prefer the matte look. How about you? SylvaC is primarily known for its figurines, for its ornamental pottery, and I'm on the lookout for one of the rabbits, especially with Easter coming up soon. But I've always found them to be slightly out of my price range at between £30 and £40. They also made tableware too, like that mint sauce pot I've just shown you, which originally would have come with a little saucer, and also a whole range of vegetable pots too. I'm getting distracted by this jug made by Sadler, famous for its Brown Betty teapots. I have so many vases containers though, I'm being really strict about what I buy from now on. And this jug isn't SylvaC either, but isn't it gorgeous? I love the soft glaze to it. This is the sunflower jug made by Kensington Ware. As well as the beige, I believe it also came in a turquoise glaze and was produced around 1920 to 1939. Again, something I would love to have in my collection, but my shelves are well and truly groaning at home. You'll notice that my friend and I are wrapped up warm. It was a very cold winter's day, and inside the vintage store it is absolutely freezing, although the cafe is very warm and welcoming. And right at the back of this shelf, I found this little basket by Govencraft, produced in the 1930s at the Glasgow Pottery. This makes a great little container for odds and ends of flowers, so perhaps instead of using your offcuts in a jam jar, you might want to scrunch up a little bit of chicken wire and make them look more impressive. And look here on the back of this shelf, a rather interesting container. Is it a flower frog inbuilt into a vase, or perhaps a potpourri holder? My eye is drawn to this glass flower block or glass flower dome. And if you're interested in finding out more about these glass flower domes, I do have a video on it, and I'll make sure I leave a link to it in the description under this one. I'm not quite sure what that label says. But presumably it's never been used if the label is still intact. Founded in 1894 with the SylvaC name registered in 1937, in 1938 the then owners bought the Falcon Pottery, and from then everything made at the Falcon Pottery and the SylvaC Pottery was known as Falconware up until 1964. Arthur Wood pottery always catches my eye. Again, I think it's that soft lustre to the glaze that's drawing me in, very similar to the finish to the SylvaC pieces. So Arthur Wood was established in 1884 and made teapots, was later acquired by Cartonware in 1967. And who doesn't love a little bit of blue and white pottery with this ginger jar? Such a classic. I think this one is made by Sadler. Oh look, a posy ring. I love discovering posy rings. This one was made at the Paul Pottery, which was founded in 1872 and closed in 2006. I really like the shape, but the pattern here, the decoration, wasn't for me, and at £10, just a little bit out of my price range. What I did like the look of in the next booth though were these wall vases, and SylvaC did actually make wall vases, although these are little plastic containers. I've got my eye on a SylvaC wall vase in an antique shop local to me. I'd love to buy it, but I just don't have the wall space. The £12 a pair for these wall vases, made in Hong Kong.
Spread us out.
And although it isn't SylvaC, I was really tempted by this collection of glass plates. £5 for the set, so I think there were 60 sets, and then a huge cake plate. I didn't actually buy anything on my visit to Petticoat Lane this time round, and I'm tempted to go back and see whether this set is still there. And tucked away in a crate on the floor, more blue and white crockery. This pattern is called Yuan, I'm not quite sure how I say that, Y-U-A-N, by Woods & Sons. And I have got some Woods & Sons crockery in my collection, although mine is red and white. I think this was in production from 1865 to 2005 and was designed by Frederick Reed. And then on to the Burley pottery collection. So this is the Asiatic pheasant. Again, I was tempted by this. £8 for each cup and saucer, which I thought was quite pricey. But when you check on the Burley website, I think you can pay £30 for a single teacup, with the saucer being extra. So perhaps I should have treated myself to a new breakfast teacup and saucer. The friend I went with loves a glass candlestick, and she found this Villa & Bock very elegant piece, and then discovered that there was a chip on the edge, so she didn't buy it. And check out the trophy glassware at the back, very similar to my celery vase. And a cut to clear bird piece here. Did you see the same piece when I visited the charity shops in Whitstable a while back? I'll make sure I leave a link to that video in the description underneath this one. I'm presuming a customer did this, putting the little brown bag on top of the beautiful sunflower vase, which was the matching pair to one we saw earlier in the day. There, it looks much better without that little brown bag resting on the top. And tucked away here, another little piece of the trophy-ware glass. This one is £4. I think the other one was £12, the larger container, and I paid £3.50 for mine in a charity shop. And then a little bit of blue and white. You always wonder when you see those stripes whether it's going to be Cornish ware. Highly desirable, made by TG Green, I think it is. But this is presumably the cheaper brand of chefware. And no, this next piece isn't a glass flower block. It's a paperweight made by Dartington Glass. And I picked up the identical one. I think it might have been at a flower festival when I paid about 50p for it. So I've got quite a good return on my money. I was only shopping with one of my thrifting friends this week. And as the other friend loves Susie Cooper, we enjoyed spotting this on her behalf. And then it was time for lunch, so we warmed up in the cafe and had delicious egg on toast and a cup of tea. And the Susie Cooper plate that we were admiring, this was a pattern that was first introduced in 1935 called the Dresden Spray, but the original production company thought the design was too complicated to produce. So Susie Cooper produced it herself in the 1950s and 60s. SylvaC or not? It is SylvaC, £5. You can't quite make out the maker's mark. It's been impressed in the back and isn't particularly clear. But in the right light, you can see it says SylvaC. And my friend spotted another SylvaC vase on the shelf below. I think this one is called Magnolia. Can you see the magnolia buds on the side? Again, £5. Known as an ornamental pottery and not a pottery of fine high art, as well as animals, rabbits and dogs, it also had a line in gnomes. I must say, I think this is my least favourite of all the SylvaC pieces. What do you think? I don't particularly like the style, and it just seems to be another bit of clutter. You couldn't arrange flowers in it, but they just intended to be trinket pots. What do you think? I do love a vase that was made in the 20s and 30s. So this is a piece by Denby, marked Vulcanware. I particularly like the little detail with the handles. It's like a very usable vase, not particularly big, so I'd have plenty of cupboard space for it. And of course it wouldn't be an outing with my thrifting friends if we didn't find some jasperware. £8.50 for this little trinket dish. I still don't really like the texture of jasperware, although I do have a couple of pieces in my collection. And talking about Wedgwood, here's a pattern I see all the time in the charity shops. And some more Susie Cooper. That's the great thing about looking around all the booths in these vintage markets, is you can quite soon shop around and pick together and make a collection of your own. £15 for a really pretty jug. Oh, I think it was on sale, a bargain at £12 only. And from the delicate florals of Susie Cooper, here's something a little bit different. Susie Cooper designing for Wedgwood in the 1970s. With a very graphic old gold keystone design. And if I wished I'd bought the Asiatic pheasant teacup and saucer, the glass plates and cake plate, I wish I'd also bought this little glass piece too. It's the American pattern. Can you see the cube-like structure to it? Made by the Fostoria Glass Company, based in Ohio. They established in 1887 and closed in 1986, and my eyes have been opened to Fostoria by watching Lady Mary Beth's channel here on YouTube And if you don't already subscribe to our channel, I'll leave details of it in the description underneath this video. And it's always a good day when you find a vintage vase with its own flower frog. I don't particularly like this pattern here. You can also get it in a brown mottled as well. New Devon, made in England. As I pan down the shelves, can you spot anything that looks like SylvaC? It's there. Did you spot it? It's this really ugly pebble vase. I would not personally give this house room, but of course your tastes might be different to mine. It's a 1960s piece with the pattern number 3420. And then let's scan these shelves too. Start at the back and sweep left and right until you get down to the very bottom. The cream planter at the back is by Arthur Wood, and in front this beautiful little mantle vase. I really love the colour of the glaze, and it's marked DC. That's not the manufacturer's name, it's the initials. Desmond Cooper, who owned a set of gift shops and used to import loads of vases. I rather like that original flower frog inside the planter vase. £24. And although I didn't like the multicoloured pebble vase I showed you earlier, I do like the colour, the single colour and texture on this one. And here's another posy ring, this time in the shape of a lucky horseshoe. Not quite sure about that maker's mark there. Burlington. And another SylvaC vase in that magnolia pattern. This is 2993, produced in the 1930s. There's just so much to feast your eyes on. I like that green jug on that shelf there. But as we pan down, we come to more of the SylvaC novelty ware. And this time it's swans, not gnomes. When I've looked up this pattern online, it variously describes it as swan in reeds or swan in bulrushes. If you know exactly what it's called, don't forget to let me know in the comments. Phew, now we're back to something as much more to my taste. These are Dartmouth vases. They have a look of SylvaC. They've got a flat bottom to them, and the definition isn't quite so clear as the hyacinth vase that I showed you earlier. And the two little boat-shaped vases here, I think this is called the Bristol Bowl, pattern number 289, a ribbed vase that came in white, green and grey. I rather like the two of those. And then one last spot, just before we leave the shop, another glass flower dome. This one priced at £6. I've got a growing collection, so because it's got that discoloration at the top, I'm going to put this back for someone else to find.
So thank you so much for joining me in today's SylvaC video. And as I said right at the beginning, if you know more about SylvaC than I do let me know in the comments. And before I go, perhaps you've got a SylvaC collection too. So why don't you post some photographs in my free Facebook group, Flower Start World. You can search for it on Facebook, or I'll leave a link to it in the description underneath the video. And talking about joining things, have you thought about joining my special YouTube membership group? You need to pay a monthly fee and you get early access to the videos that I upload on a Monday, and also free access to my monthly Zoom Flower Club. Well, that's all from me for now, and I'll see you again next time.